All right, we also know that a good bit of history is about some of the biggest worldview issues, some of the most important battles of ideas. And in recent history, there is no battle of ideas more important than understanding the reality, the threat, the history, the context of communism. And that's why I want to recommend this book by Sven McGeechan. And it's entitled To Overthrow the World, The Rise and Fall and Rise of Communism. So again, I guess just as a reading hint, let me suggest you pay attention to subtitles. Because the title is a way of getting your attention, and certainly the title should convey the meaning and significance of the book. But the subtitle often tells you what the argument is going to be. So let's look at that subtitle again. The Rise and Fall and Rise of Communism. So it really is a very interesting book. It takes us back, of course, to the origins of Marxism and the development of communism. It takes us to Russia, but it also takes us to China, and it takes us elsewhere. And so when you talk about the rise and fall and rise, well, just think of contrasting stories here. Just think of the Soviet Union, but then think of China and the power of that communist regime and the Communist Party in China even now. It's a really interesting story, huge worldview dimensions, and it will change the way you look at the world, not only the way you look at, say, today's China. All right, so now I want to recommend another book. Speaking of China and communism, I'm going to recommend a book that's heavy. And by the way, it's heavy in more ways than one. It's physically heavy. And, you know, that's another little publishing thing. Sometimes it's just about the weight of the paper on which the book is printed. So you can have a heavy book and content published on light paper. You can have a light book and content published in heavy paper. This is heavy and heavy. But I'm recommending it because it is unprecedented. And it will offer you an understanding of some of the biggest names in the contemporary world, particularly in China, particularly Xi Jinping, the head of the Communist Party and the head of the totalitarian government under the Communist Party in China. One of the most important figures of our age. I think that should just simply be recognized as a fact. One of the most important figures of our age. How do you understand him? This book is The Party's Interests Come First, the life of Xi Zhongxun, the father of Xi Jinping. Okay, so now you have the father. Okay, Western sources, Western intelligence, China watchers, the old China hands have been very familiar with the story of Xi Zhongxun. And that is because he rose in so many ways into the highest ranks of the Communist Party, only then to fall. And the story of the father in this case, Xi Zhongxun, helps us to understand the story of his son, Xi Jinping. Now, you know, I think most of us would agree that when you have a father and a son, it's extremely helpful, if you want to know the son, to come to know the father. And in this case, there's plenty of documentation about Xi Zhongxun and his rise and his fall, and then the unprecedented rise of his son. And by the way, all of this came in ways that reveal how communism works, how the Communist Party works. It is, at times, a fairly horrifying story. I think it's an incredibly important story. And I think as you think of the importance and the strategic nature of China right now, the worldview challenge of communism right now, it's not just the rise and fall and rise of communism that is an important story. It's the particular story, the biography of Xi Jinping. But behind that, this historical work concerning his father. And this is a biography, but it's more than a biography. It really is an incredibly well-researched, and I think it will become an authoritative understanding of China in this period, which is, it's really important for understanding China now. As I say, without apology, this isn't really beach reading like a murder mystery. This is heavier work, but I'll also tell you, it's compelling. All right, speaking of history, sometimes history can come to us in a way that is written in such a way. It can be picked up, and you can read a chapter now, you can read a chapter later, you can put it all together. One of the compelling figures of history. And so I'm recommending Dan Jones's biography of Henry V. He identifies Henry V as England's greatest warrior king, and thus the subtitle, The Astonishing Triumph of England's Greatest Warrior King. Dan Jones has written a lot of popular history, particularly of Great Britain, particularly of monarchs. And this is an example of a kind of book, and this came out recently, on Henry V, a major figure not only in British history, but I would say in the history of Western civilization. And it's offered here with all the drama of monarchy. It's offered here with, frankly, the violence of monarchy and of the age. You'll understand the medieval age better, and you'll, of course, understand the story of Henry V. And so you need, at times, not to apologize for being drawn to a book which you're not reading for academic purposes, and you're not trying to read in terms of someone who comes at this arguing to the scholarly world. Some of the best history is history that is just written for everybody. And there's a reason why this kind of history is so important. Magisterial biographies. When we use that term, we mean big biographies that are likely to be authoritative. And Ron Chernow, who's a major American biographer, and of course has won the Pulitzer Prize, he's written several other biographies, and I would say all of them, I think, are really important. I love his biography entitled Titan on John D. Rockefeller. But this is his new biography on Mark Twain. Again, it's a big book. You're not going to just carry this in your pocket. Are you interested in Mark Twain? Well, my guess is that whether or not you're really interested in Mark Twain, you certainly know of Mark Twain's influence, or think you know about his influence in terms of American history. I would suggest that when you look at this particular biography, which is kind of warts and all, it reminds us that we really understand an age through some of the lives that become representative of that age. And so I think in that light, this biography of Mark Twain, which is going to be, I think, the authoritative, definitive biography of Mark Twain, it helps us to understand America, and for that matter, the world, but most importantly, America and American thought and American life and American culture and American narratives. It helps us to understand these things in a very powerful way. Chernow is, I think, a particularly skilled biographer, and so I will just say, I'll just read anything he puts out. But that doesn't mean I'd recommend everything he puts out in terms of the subject matter. And so in this case, it's kind of middle ground for me. Mark Twain's not someone with whom I have an enormous amount of fascination, but I do understand you can't understand America and the American mind and even much of American history without understanding Mark Twain and his role in that history. So again, I recommend this. Just incredibly done, skillfully done, and in the end, authoritative. All right, well, that's a lot of books, more than I would usually put into a summer reading article. But I just thought, it's likely that some of you are going to find some of these books to be particularly interesting. Some are going to be interested in espionage and Churchill. Some are going to be interested in organized crime. Some are going to be interested in the American Revolution and the entire historical context. Some are going to be interested in Mark Twain and Henry V. But I'm going to end you with kind of a hint of things to come. All right? Because I think the most important biography published in this year, and frankly for many years around it, is likely to be this one. It is the biography of William F. Buckley Jr. by Sam Tannenhouse, entitled Buckley, The Life and Revolution That Changed America. Let me just tell you, it's not light reading. And it's about 900 pages long, just short of that. Tannenhouse has been working on this for decades, and as a matter of fact, many people thought they might never see the book. Well, the book is out, and I can just guarantee you it is going to cause controversy. William F. Buckley Jr. had a big impact on me and on so many others. One of the biggest lives of the 20th century in the United States, and frankly with impact far beyond. A fascinating person, and all I'm going to tell you is that there are people who are going to love this book. There are people who are going to hate this book. And I think I understand both responses. And I just want to say, you can stay tuned. We're going to have a very lengthy consideration of this new biography of William F. Buckley Jr. That's going to have to wait for another day. But this summer, you might want to start reading. It is 850 pages long, so, it may take more than an afternoon in the hammock. It's worthwhile. Okay, I hope this has been helpful to you. I love books, and I enjoy talking about books. And as one book lover to another, I just want to share this with you in hopes that maybe some of you will find some of these books really, really interesting. And I hope you'll let me know if you do. And, if you get a chance, let me know what you're reading. I might want to read that too.